that the Biden administration has not responded to PTI's efforts for having its support in what the PTI describes as its struggle for the restoration of democracy in Pakistan. In fact, in dozens of briefings and press chairs, US officials have indicated that they do not see it as a struggle for the restoration of democracy or not for the restoration of democracy. They see it as a part of the political culture in Pakistan, where parties in power always use such methods against those in the opposition. Yes, it is bad. Yes, it is regrettable, and that it is not something that should happen in a democratic setup. But they also sort of acknowledge that in countries like Pakistan, this is how democracy functions. Okay, so this issue of Imran Khan's second arrest was raised at the State Department briefing on Monday, which was the first working day in Washington after his arrest. I think it was Saturday morning in Washington when Mr. Khan was arrested. Sunday was Saturday and Sunday were being the weekends, so they did not offer much comments. But I was surprised actually when I sent them an email on Saturday morning and asking for comments. So I thought the usual response in such circumstances is that we are closed on Saturday, get back to us on Monday. But they did not. They did send a brief statement saying that they see it as an internal matter of Pakistan and that they expect Pakistan to follow its own constitution and laws, period. Then on Monday, obviously, journalists went to the briefing and they raised this issue. And as expected, they simply repeated what they had said in email to us, which is that they see it as an internal matter and that Pakistan should observe its constitution and its laws, period. But then obviously journalists were not going to let it go like this. So the statement started a brief discussion in which, surprisingly, the AP's correspondent, Associated Press of America, AP is sort of the prime news agency in the world, but particularly in the United States. Therefore, AP's correspondent gets the first seat in the briefing room, and he or she always raises the first question and can always interfere and ask any number of questions he or she wants. So AP's correspondent, whose first name is Matt, is known by his first name, and he actually raised 3 or 4 points. First of all, he said that, okay, you see it as Pakistan's internal matter, but you do comments on matters that are internal for other countries, such as, it says, when recently somebody in Russia was arrested in similar circumstances. You commented on that, and there was this person, Julian Assange, who is an Australian, and he leaked official US documents. So you not only commented on what he did and on his arrest, on his decision to take political refuge in other countries, and now he's been held in a prison in Britain. You are trying to bring him back to America. They're trying to bring him to America to face a trial and possibly be convicted. So he said there are plenty of examples to show that you have been commenting on these matters. To which they said, yes, we do, when we feel that the cases are unfounded. And when we feel that they are unfounded, we comment. But this case, the State Department spokesman said, we feel that this case is not one of those where we feel the need to comment, which obviously shows that the United States does not believe that the charges brought against Imran Khan are unfounded, and that his conviction is based on unfounded allegations. But obviously, he did not explain. He just said that we do not believe that this case warrants our comment. They did not comment on it. Then this issue was raised again today. This time, journalists hoping by Pakistani journalists, and they were hoping that they may offer a little more now that like 2 days have passed since 4 days have passed since Imran's arrest. But they did not. He said actually in so many words that my position will not be different from what it was yesterday, and that I will still say that it is Pakistan's internal matter. Now, why the Biden administration is doing so? I think there are several reasons. It is not because the Biden administration or President Joe Biden, they do not like Imran Khan. It is not because the Biden administration has anything against him, against PTI or for Pakistan or everything. It is simply based on how the United States see its interests are better protected in Pakistan. First of all, during the Afghan war, let's start with that. During the Afghan war, Americans continuously tried to persuade Pakistan to change its position on Afghanistan, to actually sever its ties to the Afghan Taliban, not to allow Afghan Taliban to enter Pakistan. Americans believe that Pakistan's indirect support to the Afghan Taliban enabled them to maintain their presence in Afghanistan, to continue to fight American and NATO forces for 20 years, and ultimately to recapture Kabul. And so there is a realization in Washington that Pakistan's security establishment, which obviously are the armed forces, do listen to America when they feel that their interests coincide with those of America. They do listen to the Americans. But when they do not see that, when they see that their interests are different from those of America, then they do not listen to them. And so it is felt in Washington, this is one of those issues on which even if they interfered, even if they urged Pakistan to let Imran Khan go, to drop the charges against him, to let him contest the elections and normalize elections with him, the Pakistani establishment will not listen to them, will not accept their demand. So therefore, they do not want to say anything that will not be respected in Washington. That is the first reason. The second reason, obviously, is their own relations with Imran Khan, the relations between the Biden administration and Imran Khan, even when he was in power, were not very cordial. You remember that Pakistan kept urging President Biden to call Imran Khan and speak with him. He did not. And you see that there have been very few high-level visits to Pakistan, although Pakistani officials have been coming to Washington during Imran days, as well as after the PTI government. But when Imran was in power, in those days, the officials who were welcomed with open arms were mostly from the Pakistani establishment. Pakistani political officials were also received here, but not with as much enthusiasm as the military officials were received, which has been the case for quite some time. I would not say that just with the Imran administration or with this present administration, PDM, because what Washington believes that what it needs in Pakistan is better served by the military establishment than by a political setup in Islamabad. For instance, if they need Pakistan's support in Afghanistan, it will be the military establishment whose support they will need, not the support of the political setup. There was recently a seminar here where the participant discussed how to persuade Taliban to respond to international demands, to not to allow the Afghan territory for terrorist activities, to let women return to schools and colleges, to let women work in offices and everything. Even in those discussions, in those discussions, I think Pakistan's role was discussed, and it was concluded that that if America wants the Taliban to follow or to do what to actually fulfill the promises they made when they signed a deal with the United States, it will need Pakistan's support, because Pakistan can still play a key role in pursuing the Taliban. But they also, but then they also sort of reviewing the current situation. They acknowledge that Pakistan does not have the type of influence that it did it once did in Afghanistan. So maybe Pakistan will not be very useful, and that another country, perhaps India, could also play a significant role in Afghanistan. So this shows two things. Number one, if they need anybody's help from Pakistan in Afghanistan or in other areas in the region, it will be the military establishment whose help they will need. And if not, if they are going to depend on India and others, then they do not really need to get so involved in Pakistan. Rather, in both situations, Washington does not want to get too involved in that region. Pakistan does not want to get back to the situation where it had to send its troops to Afghanistan. It wants to maintain a good, friendly relationship with Pakistan, but not the type of relationship that it had during the war against terrorism or during the war against the Soviet Union. And that is why you see that there is no great desire in Washington to get involved in Pakistan domestic affairs in the way that it did in the past, where it actually used its influence to shape things within Pakistan. Now they still have an interest. They still, when they want, can use their influence to suit their interest, but they will not get as involved as PTI wants or as anybody else in Pakistan wants.